6 home runs hit, 13 runs scored. Is this Mets lineup finally starting to turn a corner, or did they just take advantage of the Rockies?
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, this was an outstanding weekend for the New York Mets. Their lineup exploded for 21 runs over the final 2 games of their series against the Rockies, which was an incredible sight. And sure, you could say, hey, it's Rockies pitching, playing at altitude. The Mets did what they're supposed to do. But I think you'd also say, going into the weekend, that the Phillies were supposed to go into Pittsburgh and win a game, at least. Maybe win a series, maybe sweep a bad Pirates team. Phillies got swept. The Braves have lost 7 games in a row. On yesterday's show, I talked about this division and how the Mets are more and more moving into the driver's seat of the National League East. Yeah, sure, they did what they're supposed to do, but they deserve credit for doing what they're supposed to do, because there's a lot of teams that go into a weekend against the Rockies and they might slip up and lose a game, or maybe not this year, because this year the Rockies have been handing out a lot of W's to teams around the league, but the point stands, it's easy to let a game slip away, and the Mets almost did that on Friday. You know, that Friday night game was not easy. It was a late RBI double from Pete Alonso and a late RBI double off the bench from Francisco Lindor that led the Mets to a win. That game was nerve-wracking. But they then did exactly what you expect them to do, playing against a team that's 40 games under 500 at altitude. They beat them up, and they deserve credit for that. Sure, this week could have been even better. The Mets could have taken that series against the Dodgers. Honestly, they could have won every single game this week. But if you told me going into the road trip that the Mets would win 5 of 7, I would have signed up for that no matter how they got them. And so this was a very good week for the Mets as they continue to put behind them that one bad stretch they had that started with the Subway Series that bled into that series against the Red Sox. And since, they haven't looked back, and they have got right back to the top spot in the National League East. Let's kind of go through this game on Sunday, because it was an absolute blast to watch. Whenever you see your team score 13 runs on 17 hits, it's always going to be fun, especially if there's 6 home runs hit. It was a great game. Tyler McGill opened things up and looked dominant through the first 4 innings. Struck out the side in the first inning, worked around a couple of walks in the second inning, and then had 2 more 1-2-3 innings in the third and the fourth inning. So he was in complete command, looking like he was going to pitch deep into the game. And during that span in the first 4 innings, the Mets piled on 8 runs. Jeff McNeil got the scoring going in the second inning, led things off with the home run, his second in as many days, homered on Saturday as well. Ronny Mauricio got a base hit. Tyrone Taylor walked. Brett Baty flew out, and then Francisco Alvarez got an RBI single. The Mets certainly could have scored more, but they had Francisco Lindor and Brendan Nimmo ground out to end that threat. Third inning, Juan Soto leads things off with a base hit in front of Pete Alonso. And then Pete Alonso, who had an unbelievable week, we'll be talking about him more in the next segment, hit his 16th home run of the season that tied David Wright for second place all-time for the New York Mets. And then he passed David Wright later on in this same game. Ronny Mauricio got another single in that inning, stole second base, and scored on a double for Tyrone Taylor. So that's how the Mets got 3 runs in the third. Fourth inning, Soto and Alonso each got base hits in front of Jeff McNeil, who then hit a 3-run homer. 2-home-run day for McNeil, 6th home run of the season. Mets were up 8-0. Tyler McGill struggled in the 5th inning. After throwing only 53 pitches through the first 4, he needed 29 pitches to get the 3 outs in the 5th inning. Ends up giving up a couple of runs. He would get pulled after that inning at the 82 pitch mark because Paul Blackburn was ready to go, and the Mets are trying to keep him stretched out for now. So they have Blackburn piggyback McGill, and Blackburn would finish off the game for a save because any pitcher that pitches the final 3 innings of a game that the team wins gets a save. In this case, for Blackburn, it was the final 4 innings. Needed 71 pitches to get through those 4 innings, gave up 3 runs on 7 hits and a walk, but did what he had to do to finish off things for the Mets. And the Mets just kept on adding to their lead. 2-run homer by Baty in the 7th, driving in Jeff McNeil, who had doubled. 2-run homer for Pete Alonso in the 8th inning, driving in Juan Soto, who had drawn a walk. Soto, for the first time in his career, surprisingly enough, got on base 6 times in a game. I'm sure he has plenty of times where he's gotten on base 5 times in a game, but 6 is a tough number to get to. 3 hits, 3 walks, went 3 for 3 with 3 runs scored and those 3 walks. So a great day at the office for Soto. Francisco Alvarez added the cherry on top in the 9th inning, hitting a home run that hopefully can spark him a little bit. We'll talk about him some in the next segment as well. He has been a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, hitting over 300 over his last 9 games played. But the Mets overall in this game pile up 17 hits. They were 5 for 13 with runners in scoring position. They scored 21 runs across a 2-day span. And if you look at their final 21 innings at Coors, because they didn't score for the first 6 innings on Friday night, the Mets scored 25 runs in 21 innings. That is a great outburst for this offense that desperately needed it. And yes, you look at what they've done this month, and it's largely been ballooned by the fact that 4 of the 8 games they have played this month have come against the Rockies. But we've seen bad teams still keep the Mets off the board. So it's good to see them finally piling on the runs, finally seeing a couple pieces in this lineup get hot at the same time, particularly Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and even Brandon Nimmo stepping up. Is this a sign of things to come? Can the New York Mets sustain this offense and put together a really great month of June and hopefully become the offensive force we've been expecting them to be all season? I want to talk about that next. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. You're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller, longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety of Wonderful Pistachios. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack, whether I'm here at my desk or if I'm going on a road trip or if I'm about to hit the golf course. I'm always making sure that I bring my Wonderful Pistachios with me. The smoky barbecue flavor is my personal favorite, but I also love the honey roasted. So I got a little bit of savory, a little bit of sweet. Either way, Wonderful Pistachios gives you that protein boost that makes it such a fulfilling snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button to help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. We're about halfway there. I think we're just over 13,500. So I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Let's talk about this Mets lineup. And the place you have to start is the guy that is a legit MVP candidate right now. Pete Alonso has been unbelievable. He should get Player of the Week for what he just did on this road trip where he went 12 for 30. That's a 400 batting average. Got on base at a 46 clip. Led Major League Baseball with 5 home runs. Also led Major League Baseball with 15 RBIs. Next closest was Jesus Sanchez for the Marlins, who had 9. Pete is right back to where he was in April, where he was right there with Aaron Judge as one of the hottest hitters in all of baseball. Now you look at his season-long numbers after a little bit of a slower May, but a huge uptake in June. Pete's hitting 301, 396 on base, 594 slug. Those are marks that would be career highs across the board, particularly when you're looking at the average and the on base. We've never seen this from Pete Alonso, this level of a complete hitter. He's got a 990 OPS right now. It's numbers that are probably unsustainable, but even if he comes in a hair below that, even if he ends up hitting 280, that is the best he's ever done. If he gets on base at a 375 clip, the best he's ever done. Even if he slugs at a 570 clip, that's as good as he's ever been in a big league uniform, and really probably his whole life. I mean, this guy is on a tear. He said it earlier this season. He hasn't been this locked in since, what did he say, sophomore year of college or junior year of college. It is an incredible heater for Pete Alonso, but it's not just, a hot stretch and that's it. This is now the second time he has gotten hot, and him getting hot now looks like the best hitter on the planet when he's right. Aaron Judge is still that. Shohei Ohtani can't be that. I have talked recently with the Mets playing the Dodgers a bunch that Freddie Freeman is the hitter I fear the most. There's a lot of guys that can get to that level, that peak. But Pete's showing the ability to get to a ceiling that's beyond what we've seen in recent years. And it's so satisfying to see it after the offseason that he had and all of the debate about his free agency and everything else. Because there was Mets fans that grew tired of Pete Alonso. I think the larger portion of the fan base always wanted Pete back. But I was, putting polls up in the offseason, and it wasn't 90% of the audience saying bringing Pete Alonso back. It was, a good portion that said, let him walk. You got Mark Vientos. Well, now look at where you're at with Vientos. It shows you not to discount a track record. Because if nothing else, Pete Alonso has a track record. He's about to go down as the greatest home run hitter in franchise history. He's already there. He already can be called that. He can already be called the Mets home run king because we know he's going to pass Strawberry. But also just think about what this guy's done across the first 7 years of his career, when one of them was 2020, where he only got to play 60 games. Pete Alonso is everything you want out of a homegrown star. Everything. The way he shows up and the way he works, the way that he answers questions, even in his own quirky way, he's always a professional. And now you're seeing him just get back to the core of just being the best hitter that he can be. And I think he got distracted over the last couple of years, and it's understandable with everything going on with the franchise, with all the pressure that was on Pete's shoulders. And now you have Juan Soto in front of him, taking on a big brunt of the pressure. You have Francisco Lindor, who is now considered the face of the team. And here's Pete Alonso, the lovable homegrown guy that at this point deserves to stay beyond this season, deserves to get whatever contract the market dictates this offseason for multiple years to keep him in blue and orange, because this guy should continue to be part of winning for the New York Mets because he is that good of a player. And it's really just great to see. On pace for 42 home runs, which isn't surprising. On pace for 150 RBIs. That's a number that's going to pop out to you. When he was a free agent, I talked about Aaron Judge and how Aaron Judge's career high in RBIs was back in 2022 at 131 RBIs, the exact mark that Pete Alonso had to lead the National League that year. Those two guys each led their respective leagues. Last year, with Juan Soto hitting in front of Aaron Judge, he set a new career high with 144 RBIs. And while Pete is not Aaron Judge, the run production throughout his career has been Aaron Judge-like, between the home runs hit, although he hasn't gotten to the heights that Judge has, but being a guy that's going to flirt with 40 and a guy that's going to drive in 100. And so what you're seeing now with Soto hitting in front of Pete, all of a sudden that production in the RBI department is skyrocketing. And I do think he'll set a career high for RBIs, and I don't think it's impossible for him to get to 150. That is something I said before the season, and it looks even more evident now. So Pete Alonso as this incredible run-producing engine in the middle of your lineup in the cleanup spot, that's something that's not going away this season. Juan Soto is going to be better. He's gotten on base in 11 straight games now, homered 3 times in his past 9 games played. Across that span, he's hitting 346 in June, 564 on base, 615 slug, OPS of 1.179. If Soto can, I wouldn't say sustain this for the rest of the season, but he can sustain a hot stretch like this for a month. If he can get back to being Juan Soto, and we're seeing a lot of the signs that he is on his way back to being the guy that earned that $765 million contract, if Francisco Lindor can continue what he's done for over a year now, and he's on a hot stretch right now with a 947 OPS over his last 13 games played. Brandon Nimmo's looked a lot better in the 2-hole. He's got an 839 OPS over his last 13 games, hitting 294 during that span. That's your 1 through 4. If those guys are rolling, the lineup's going to be good. And it feels like those four guys are in the best spot they've been collectively all season. Granted, yes, Rockies pitching helped, but they also were able to do some things against the Dodgers. And I have some confidence that this is going to be a good run here for your top four hitters in the lineup. And then beyond that, you just need a couple guys to get hot at any point at the bottom of the lineup for the production to be there. You don't need the entire bottom five to be rolling at once. You just need a couple of those guys at a time. And the Mets have a lot of options in that department. Jeff McNeil is having a great season. I want to talk about him more in the next segment. He's hitting .302 over his last 12 games played with 4 home runs, 4 doubles, and OPS over 1,000. And we'll get into the season-long numbers in a little bit. Over the past 30 days, Starling Marte is hitting .319 with a .418 on base and a .489 slug. OPS over 919 games played over that 30-day span. He's starring in his role right now, and I remember getting a lot of questions from our insiders earlier this season and also seeing the comments on YouTube. Why aren't the Mets going to cut Marte? Why aren't they going to cut Marte? And I remember saying, well, as long as Jose Azocar is still on the roster, there's no world where you're even considering cutting Starling Marte. And I even said at the time that Marte is a guy that I could see by the end of the season getting phased out, but I thought he'd have a role all year. And I also tried to remind people how good he was in the playoffs last year. He's playing well, and he is contributing. You have Francisco Alvarez, I mentioned, hitting better over the last 9 games played. Yeah, .303 average, .361 on base, .424 slug. Not bad for Alvarez lately. We'll see if he can turn this into a little bit more of a sustained run of success. Tyrone Taylor and Brett Baty, they've been fading. But now you get Ronny Mauricio throwing a spark into the lineup. Again, if the Mets can find consistency with Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, and Alonso atop their lineup, all they need is a few of these guys at a time to be making contributions at the bottom part of the lineup. And the Mets will be good. You look at what they've done in June. It's been the best lineup in baseball. 19 home runs leads the league. 6 came on Sunday, so a little bit of a balloon stat there. But the second best team has 12 home runs. The Mets have scored 50 runs. The only other team who has done that is the Red Sox. Everybody else is well below that. So those two teams have been the best offenses. You look at the Red Sox, they do have the best OPS at 879 in June, but the Mets aren't too far behind at 847. The Mets are also only 1 stolen base behind the Giants for the league lead there. They have 10 stolen bases through 8 games this month. Very impressive stuff in that department as well. You look at the Nationals coming to town this week. They have not been very good at run prevention. So the Mets can certainly sustain this through the next series. The Rays would present a more difficult task to close out the week. But I do believe this lineup is trending in the right direction, absolutely, even if we had to have that caveat of let's see them do it away from Coors and not against Rockies pitching. But I think it's definitely looking a lot better than it has been, and I think it can continue to be a much better unit moving forward. I don't think there's any reason why the Mets can't have a top 10, if not a top 5 offense in all of baseball. I thought that before the season, and I still feel like that now. The question, though, who will be the real starting infielders as we get through this season? Which guys should be getting the playing time right now? Which guys will earn the playing time come October? I want to talk about that to close out the show. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with your friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. You want to just hop on the 7 line, get down to the ballpark, and hit up some Citi Field Tuesday night action this week. Maybe that's what you want to do. Mets Nationals. That's where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop as the game gets closer when first pitch is upon us. For me, when I'm going to a game, I'm waiting until I'm walking into the ballpark. And right before I get up to the security line, that's when I'm purchasing my tickets. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, sent right to your phone. They have incredible last-minute deals, clear views that you can see from your seat. You can actually view your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game like the Nationals coming to town this week. Game Time has last-minute deals and zone deals for big savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets Insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks from the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. Get the live graphics sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets Insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now let's talk about this Mets infield. Right now, you got three young infielders in the mix with Ronny Mauricio now in the fold, Brett Baty, and Luis Angel Acuna, as well as having Mark Vientos on the IL, but not with a serious injury, a low-grade hamstring strain that should have him back by July at the latest. So you got a lot of options right now. And yet, who is the best infielder right now, not named Pete Alonso or Francisco Lindor? It's Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil has gotten so much flack over the last couple of years, but you have to respect what he's doing right now. Granted, a 2-home run game with a double, 3 for 5, is going to raise the OPS a lot. His OPS jumped 75 points on Sunday, which is pretty absurd. On this season, Jeff McNeil is hitting 257, 355 on base, 533 slug. That is an 888 OPS. I got to check. That might be third best on the Mets behind Alonso and Lindor. It could now because of the ridiculous jump that he just had. There's every chance he might have even passed up Lindor. I think he did. Yeah, you look at all players on the Mets this season. You got Pete Alonso at 990, Jeff McNeil 888. Then you got Lindor, and then it's Jared Young at 823 in 10 games, and then you get to Juan Soto at 820. So, yeah, Jeff McNeil, statistically this season, granted much smaller sample size than Lindor and Soto, has been the Mets' second best hitter, which is not what I think a lot of people even realize right now, that McNeil has been that good, but he has. And there is a tangible difference in McNeil's game this year. You might say, well, Jeff's hitting 257. I mean, what's up with that? But he's walking more than he ever has. His walk rate this year is 13.7% for his career. The highest walk rate he's had in a season was last year at 7.4%, which is really just a little bit of an uptick from his career norm, which is 7%. Jeff McNeil has never struck out much. This year, it's at 9.7% through his career, 11.7%. But what we've seen often with McNeil is he's always putting the ball in play. And I think a big difference now is a much better approach in the box where, sure, he's still going to chase out of the zone a little bit. Right now, though, that chase rate's under 25%. Last year is over 30%. So the chase is down, but he's also just a little more selective. He's getting some better counts. He's getting better pitches to hit. And he's driving the baseball. It's a more refined approach from Jeff McNeil. Yeah, the 320 hitter might not ever return, but if Jeff McNeil's getting on base at a 350 clip, and I wouldn't expect him to slug at a 530 clip all year, but I don't think it's surprising, or I don't think it would be shocking if he could slug at a 450 clip. All of a sudden, that's an 800 OPS guy who's a utility man, who's giving you average defense at second base, left field, and center. And average defense as a utility guy is a valuable utility man, because a lot of guys, they play all over the place, but they don't always play well all over the place. They don't always have the ability to play in the dirt and the grass and have success defensively. And the fact that Jeff McNeil at 33 years old, is that how old Jeff is now? The fact that all of a sudden he's playing center field consistently for the first time since college and hasn't been bad out there. Defensive metrics have him as a net neutral in center field. It's still only 9 games, but trust me, 9 games of Dom Smith in left field, or 9 games of Lucas Duda in left field, guys playing way out of position, 9 games of even when Michael Conforto would flex out the center field, it didn't always look great, right? It's not easy to play a new outfield position and handle it as seamlessly as Jeff has, especially with some of his limits when it comes to his athleticism. But Jeff makes up for that with great reads. He always is getting a great jump. He reads the ball at the bat so well. He's just always on it, and he's been able to cut off balls in the gaps, to make some catches in the gaps. He's not going to be Tyrone Taylor out there, but he certainly could be a much better hitter. So now you look at the Mets season and where they're at, especially right now as Tyrone Taylor has faded, stick McNeil out in center field more, because this gives you an opportunity to keep Brett Baty and Ronny Mauricio in the lineup and in the infield. This gives you the ability to continue to give Starling Marte a run while he's hot at DH, and Jared Young for that matter, because you can stick Jeff in center. I don't know if long-term that's the best thing, but right now McNeil should be playing, and there's no reason why you shouldn't stick him out in center field for a couple starts a week if it means getting Mauricio and Baty in there, because right now, this is the time to learn what you have with those two players. I think the ship has sort of sailed a little bit on Luis Angel Acuna. He should be demoted soon. You should not have a 23-year-old who has the potential to be your second baseman of the future sitting there every game with a catcher's mask on because he's clearly just bored in the dugout. Like, you feel bad for the kid. He's perfect in the role that he's in right now, but he's way too young to be in that role. Come October, yeah, have Luis Angel Acuna part of your playoff roster as the speedster defensive wizard. That's perfect. He played that role in October last year. You didn't call him that guy that much, but still, that's an ideal role for him. But when you're seeing Ronny Mauricio swiping some bags, if Mark Vientos comes back as soon as possible, and it's 3 weeks from now, and Vientos is back, to me, it's obvious. You send down Acuna, and then you just try to figure out playing time for all these guys, which is going to be a difficult task. And that's where McNeil in center field might help things a little bit. But for now, I think you need to see what you have in Baty and Mauricio. Now, when it comes to Baty, what he's done defensively this year, super impressive. 2 outs above average at second base, 2 outs above average at third base. He has been an above average defender at both spots. He is top 10 among all fielders in outs above average. So if nothing else, Brett Baty is becoming a very good utility infielder for the Mets defensively, with some upside offensively. But over the last 15 games, he has cooled off, hitting 220, 286 on base, 340 slug. Now you combine that with his hot stretch when he first came back, and he's been a good offensive player. He just needs to turn the corner offensively quickly again and not make this a prolonged slump, because then we're going to once again wonder, is he capable of being a starter in the big leagues? And that's what you're trying to find out this year. Then you have Mauricio, who is a lightning rod. Goes 0 for 4 in LA against the Dodgers, but I said start him all 3 games in Coors because he has the ability to have a monster series, and he did that. Had a loud double late on Friday night, homered on Saturday, got another hit, scored another run. And on Sunday in the DH spot, he goes 2 for 3 with a couple of walks. Also stole another base. He's 24 years old. He's only had 120 MLB plate appearances to his name. Got to get him run. Got to. Especially when Vientos is out. Especially because he's looked pretty good at third base. So right now, my ideal Mets lineup, I think it's Mauricio at third, Baty at second, Jeff McNeil in center field, Tyrone Taylor's your fourth outfielder. Now, you're going to play Tyrone Taylor a bunch still. You're going to play McNeil at second base a good amount. You're still going to find a start here and there against a lefty for Acuna. But this is the time to learn what you have with Baty and Mauricio. And hopefully you get Vientos back early in July. Right now, he is almost a week into what was supposed to be a 2-week shutdown to get that hamstring right. And then they're going to start to ramp up the baseball activities. And then I'm sure he'll be on a rehab assignment very soon after that. And then he has 20 days on a rehab assignment to get his swing right in the minor leagues. Sort of a pseudo option for him, where he'll get a chance to hopefully feast on some AAA pitching, get his bat right, and then you plug him back in the lineup in July. What the Mets are going to have to do once you get to July, though, is they're going to have to see what they need, because this is a team that should be putting a lot of chips on the table to try to win it all this year, because they have a group that has that ability. So nothing should be off the table at the deadline. And if you look at where the Mets are at right now, we know they're not going to do anything at shortstop. We're not going to do anything at first base. We know they're not going to do anything at catcher. And obviously their corner outfield spots are locked in with Nimmo and Soto. So that leaves you with 4 positions on the diamond to potentially make an upgrade. Center field, third base, second base, and then you have the DH spot. If you look at OPS by position for the team this year, there's 2 pretty glaring holes. Surprisingly enough, third base, not that bad. 708 OPS, right in the middle of the pack in Major League Baseball. DH, surprisingly, they have been well above norm. They're, I think, somewhere well inside the top 10 in OPS at 795. Marte's got a 796 OPS, which is pretty wild. Jesse Winker, before he went down, had a 773 OPS. And when Vientos has DH, he's had a 749 OPS. So if that's going to be your DH rotation this season in the long run, I don't think you have to add there. The question is third base, second base, and center field. Second base, the Mets OPS this season, 612. A lot of that is Luis Angel Acuna, but still not very good. OPS in center field, 663. Jeff McNeil will answer one of those problems, and most likely Jeff McNeil is going to be your starting second baseman come October. And then I think you can look at third base and say, all right, between Mauricio, Baty, Vientos, one of those guys come October should be playing good baseball. Because defensively, Baty's going to give you that, and you would expect Vientos to turn it on more offensively. So if that's the case, then all eyes would then turn to center field as the spot that the Mets could upgrade. That's what we're going to talk about in tomorrow's show, because I think there is an ideal trade candidate out there. We've talked about Cedric Mullins. He's an option, but that's not the guy I'm talking about. It's a potential star player from the Red Sox, Jarren Duran. And that's the guy I'd have my eye on right now because he's got multiple years of control. Take a lot to prime from the Red Sox, but they have Roman Anthony, the top prospect in baseball, waiting in the wings in AAA. He's proved everything he needs to be. He has proved everything he needs to be in the big leagues. Got Wilyer Abreu's having a great season. And then they still have Cedane Rafael locked up to a long-term deal as a defensive wizard and center. So Duran is a little bit expendable. The Mets would have to give a lot to get him, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow's show. But in the meantime, before you get to the deadline where the Mets might swing for the fences on a move like that, you got to find out what you have in-house. You got to find out if third base really will be solved internally. You got to make sure that you feel confident in second base. And if you feel super confident internally, if over the next 2 months, Ronny Mauricio and Brett Baty both have incredible breakouts and prove they're ready to be starting players, as well as Vientos getting back and looking good, then you might get to a point where you just decide, you know what? Yes, we're trying to win big. Yes, we should be looking to make moves. But maybe the Mets feel confident with Jeff McNeil and Tyrone Taylor in center field this season. I really don't know. But this is the time to figure out a lot of those things. And for Baty and Mauricio, this is their opportunity. So I'm excited to see them continue to get playing time. But I also wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that Jeff McNeil has been a very good player this year, and that contract is not looking as bad as everyone thought it was. It's a guy that when he signed the deal, I said this won't be a bad deal because he's just going to give you so much versatility and is going to provide such a big role in your roster that he should continue to be a really good player. Now, he's definitely faded in the first couple years of the deal, but this has been a renaissance that started in the second half last year, and it's continued. He's been a very good player lately, and hopefully he can sustain that throughout the rest of the season because this is a winning team that come October could use the best version of Jeff McNeil. It's going to make a very, very big difference. And even with Baty and Mauricio and all these guys, I still don't know if any of them are going to be able to really knock McNeil out of the lineup this year. I think a veteran hitter like this who looks the way he does right now in the box, I don't think that fades, but you never know. That's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. I already told you what tomorrow's show is. We're looking at a blockbuster trade potential. So I'll go through that and I'll preview the Mets' upcoming series against the Nationals. All of that will be available to you on your YouTube feeds as well as your podcast feeds. So make sure you're subscribed in all places. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast side, follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me on social media, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Check out Locked On MLB Game Night, which will take you around all of the action in Major League Baseball with insight from all of our local experts. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB podcast feed, as well as the Locked On MLB YouTube channel.